In today's video, we're diving into the War of 1812. This war was not just a second showdown with Great Britain, it marked a turning point in American identity, politics, and foreign policy. We'll explore the causes of the war, its key moments, its long term consequences, and the way it shaped the nation's future, from the fall of the Federalists to the rise of nationalism and the bold assertion of the Monroe Doctrine. Let's get started. On June 1st, 1812, President James Madison took a bold step. Standing before Congress, he asked for a declaration of war against Great Britain. After weeks of debate, Congress approved the declaration, but just barely. The vote was the closest margin for any war declaration in U.S. history, 79 to 49 in the House of Representatives and 19 to 13 in the Senate. The support came primarily from the Democratic Republicans, particularly the so-called war hawks in Congress, such as Henry Clay of Kentucky and John C. Calhoun of South Carolina. These young nationalists were eager to defend American honor, expand the nation's borders, and push back against British interference. But what led to this controversial call for war? Two primary causes ignited American outrage and ultimately led to the War of 1812: impressment and pressures on the frontier. First, impressment. Between 1803 and 1812, the British Navy forcibly seized between 3,000 and 6,000 American sailors from U.S. ships and pressed them into service aboard British warships. To many Americans, this policy was a direct violation of the freedoms they fought for in the American Revolution. Second, tensions on the western frontier were reaching a boiling point. American settlers were pushing into native lands, and many in the West believed that the British were fueling native resistance. Shawnee brothers Tecumseh, a fierce warrior, and his sibling, known as the Prophet, a religious leader, sought to unite native tribes against American expansion east of the Mississippi River. In 1811, these tensions erupted at the Battle of Tippecanoe. Indiana's territorial governor, General William Henry Harrison, led an attack that destroyed the Shawnee stronghold and crushed Tecumseh's dreams of forming a native confederacy. While British support to Tecumseh had been minimal, Americans still blamed Britain for the violence. The War of 1812 raged for 2 years and ended in a stalemate with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent in 1814. While the treaty restored pre war boundaries, neither side gained territory or major concessions. Still, the war saw dramatic and memorable moments. In 1814, British troops invaded Washington, D.C., setting fire to the White House, the Capitol, and other public buildings. During the defense of Baltimore, Francis Scott Key wrote a poem after witnessing the American flag flying above Fort McHenry. His words became the lyrics to the Star Spangled Banner. And in January of 1815, 2 weeks after peace had officially been declared, General Andrew Jackson led a diverse American force to a stunning victory in the Battle of New Orleans. His troops included frontier militiamen, free black Americans, and Creole fighters. Though it didn't change the outcome of the war, the victory catapulted Jackson to national fame. Although the War of 1812 ended in a draw on the battlefield, it had significant political and cultural consequences. Many Americans began referring to the war as the nation's second war of independence. Having survived two conflicts with Britain, the United States gained newfound international respect. The Federalist Party suffered a fatal blow. In December of 1814, radical Federalists from New England, who had long opposed the war, gathered at the Hartford Convention. Some even discussed secession, though it was never seriously pursued. When news of their grievances emerged after the Treaty of Ghent and the victory of New Orleans, They were branded as unpatriotic. By 1820, the Federalists controlled only 8% of the House of Representatives. As a result of the war, national pride surged. A new wave of American nationalism spread across the country, laying the foundation for future territorial expansion and a stronger central government. After the war, American eyes turned south to Spanish Florida. From their bases across the border, Native American groups, especially the Seminoles, launched raids into Georgia. At the same time, Florida had become a haven for escaped slaves who could not be legally reclaimed by their owners. In 1818, President James Monroe, who had been elected in 1816, gave General Andrew Jackson orders to pursue raiding Seminoles into Florida. Jackson took these orders to the extreme, invading Florida and seizing two Spanish forts with little resistance. Rather than risk war with the United States, Spain decided to negotiate. In the Adam-onis Treaty, also known as the Transcontinental Treaty, Spain agreed to cede Florida to the United States for $5 million. They also agreed to relinquish its claim to the Oregon Territory, clearing the way for American expansion to the Pacific. It was a quiet but momentous territorial acquisition for the young republic. Even as the United States was focused on expanding westward and consolidating its control of Florida, it kept a close eye on European ambitions in the Western Hemisphere. By the early 1820s, Spain's empire in the Americas was crumbling. Between 1816 and 1821, countries across Latin America, including Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, and Peru, successfully declared their independence, many inspired by revolutionary leaders like Simón Bolívar. But in 1822, at the Congress of Verona, European powers, Austria, Prussia, France, and Russia, discussed restoring Spain's lost colonies in the Americas. This naturally alarmed the United States. In response, President Monroe delivered a powerful message to Congress in 1823. He stated, "The American continents are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers." This statement, now known as the Monroe Doctrine, was more than just a warning. It was a bold declaration of American leadership in the Western Hemisphere. Monroe warned that any effort by Europe to control newly independent Latin American nations would be seen as an unfriendly act and a threat to U.S. peace and safety. At the time, the doctrine made little impression in Europe or Latin America, but with the backing of the British Royal Navy, it carried weight. Over time, it would become a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy, symbolizing the nation's growing global confidence. The War of 1812 may have ended without clear victory, but its legacy shaped the very fabric of American identity. It tested the young republic's resilience, ignited waves of nationalism, and laid the groundwork for bold foreign policy. From the fires of Washington to the swamps of New Orleans, from the pine forest of Florida to the halls of European diplomacy, the United States emerged from this period stronger, more assertive, and ready to claim its place on the world stage. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.